I quote, "Dear Adat Shalom friends, I'm thrilled to share some exciting news with our community. Thanks to an extraordinarily generous pledge, the Social Hall Committee has reached an important milestone that will allow us to begin the long-awaited renovation of our social hall. While fundraising efforts will continue through the completion of the project, this commitment gives us the momentum to move forward with confidence and enthusiasm." To paraphrase, our Adat Shalom community has been working for a long time towards the goal of the renovation of our social hall. Now, in this very moment, we are ready and able to begin. I continue and quote, "We are pleased to announce that the contract has officially been signed with Peter Kim of 5 Star GC, and construction is expected to begin the week of June 1st. Throughout the process, we will continue to keep the community informed with regular updates on our progress." Again, to paraphrase, construction will begin soon, not next week, but the week after, immediately following our gala. This will all bring change, and our Adat Shalom leadership, assisted by our Adat Shalom clergy and staff, will respond to this change with communication and dependability. Again, I quote, describing in more detail the change ahead. "The first phase of the project will focus on renovating our main bathrooms. In preparation, the bathrooms located along the hallway past the main office have received some touch-ups so they can comfortably serve the community during construction. In the coming weeks, we will announce the changes in access to our main sanctuary. There will be a few weeks when all access will be through the social hall, and later all access will shift to the hallway. Stay tuned for updates." Again, to paraphrase, renovation of the bathrooms will be the first of the many changes ahead. Things will continue to change, and in response, we will continue to communicate. In the conversations I've had with some, but not yet many, of you about the social hall, this is the point in the conversation where the questions begin to accelerate. What about this change? What about that change? The perspectives get more personal, and worry can sometimes tiptoe in. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov teaches in the Hasidic text Likutei Moharan, "Know this, a human being must cross a very, very narrow bridge. And the main principle, and the whole point, is to not be afraid at all." The social hall renovation project here in our community has a long history. As you all know, I've been part of this community for the past 10 years, and part of the leadership here for the past 3 years. The social hall renovation project began, to my understanding, before I even came on campus for the very first time. And over the years, there have been many leadership-level discussions and plans that I haven't really heard about. This project has a long history. The chapter in right now is pivotal. So here is my understanding of how we got to where we are with this project at this particular moment in time. So I'll share my version of the story here now, and I look forward to you all fact-checking me with love and compassion, of course, at Kiddush. The seeds of the social hall renovation project were planted about 15 years ago. Ideas were discussed, plans were drawn up, funding was received to put pen to paper and to start getting the idea out there. I'm sure many of us here today know more than I do about these earliest chapters of the story. Now, about 4 or 5 years ago, a new generation of leadership, building upon this previous work, began to emerge in the community. This generation had vision, and this generation stepped into leadership with generosity and with power. The seeds that had been planted had now fully taken root. The project had concluded its beginning and was now very much in the middle of its development. Now, about 2 or 3 years ago, yet another generation of leadership began to emerge in the community. This generation learned about the vision, and stepped forward into leadership themselves with their own generosity and their own power. And that was the moment when energy behind the social hall renovation project reached a critical mass. The fundraising necessary wasn't yet complete, but this was the moment that it became evident that the fundraising goal needed was in fact achievable. Sidebar. This is the moment in the story that I had one of my favorite personal experiences within this journey. I was talking on the phone with a rabbinic colleague who was familiar with the landscape of the Jewish community here in Los Angeles. I was sharing with him our progress on this project as well as the amount of funds raised at the time. "You raised $1.6 million?" I could practically hear him almost drop the phone in surprise, disbelief, awe, and admiration. We had done something that he did not believe we could do. And as we know, the funds we have raised now to date surpass that mark. So at this point in the process, I began to attend social hall meetings and discussions from time to time, becoming more informed about the many conversations and decisions necessary to bring this project to fruition. I was on several of the Zoom calls with the committee as we interviewed potential contractors, and while I didn't have the experience or background to really evaluate on specifics the merits of the candidates, I remember meeting Peter Kim, who we've now signed a contract with, and I remember feeling that unlike the others, he was the right person for the job. He was the right person to work with our community. And that brings us to this current phase, these most recent discussions we've had, these most recent donations we've received, and the early stages of announcing to our full Adat Shalom membership and community that yes, this is actually happening, this is the time, our life is now. As Rabbi Nachman teaches, we must cross a very, very narrow bridge. And the main principle, the whole point, is to not be afraid at all. Now, with change comes loss. With change comes sadness. My colleague, Rabbi Feivel Rubenstein, who grew up in this community along with his friends, has told me many stories of bar and bat mitzvah parties in our social hall, running back and forth at unsafe speeds. I think something happened involving a broken toe. As recently as yesterday and this morning, we see and hear our children running back and forth across the stage. And still, there are many of us who remember that before the social hall stage was a stage, it was a bima. And some of us remember high holiday services and our own bar mitzvahs taking place in view of these exact same chandeliers we can see today. With change comes sadness. With change comes loss. But loss, even devastating loss, can lay the groundwork for new beginnings. It can create the opportunity to tell a new story, to write a new narrative. On the second day of Shavuot, we read the book of Ruth, as our four readers did for us so beautifully this morning. So when we read the story, we see it starts out with devastation. A mother, Naomi, along with her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, are all left widowed and impoverished. Naomi, unable to provide for her family, tearfully begs her daughters to go back to their mother's homes. Tearfully, both daughters-in-law refuse. After another round of tears acknowledging the full extent of their devastation, Orpah agrees to depart, but Ruth insists she will stay, that she and Naomi will go on together no matter what the consequences. At this moment in the story, loss begets loss, sadness begets sadness. There is no optimism about the path forward. There is no reason to believe that things are looking up. But the unfolding of events in life is ever unpredictable, and things begin to change. It turns out that Naomi's deceased husband has family, and that this family is in a position to help. By chance, Naomi's daughter-in-law Ruth meets one of these people, a man named Boaz, as she is gleaning in the field, and gleaning is how the most impoverished people of the community find free food to sustain themselves. Now, it doesn't exactly say this in the text, but as we read, we figure it out. Ruth and Boaz fall in love. Their courtship is appropriate and respectful at every turn. Ruth follows her mother-in-law's advice, and Boaz is sure to defer to the other men in the extended family to ensure that all approve of the relationship. Now, technically speaking, when Boaz marries Ruth, he redeems the family. The marriage is an acquisition of all that Naomi's husband left behind when he died. From an outside perspective, it seems that Boaz has mostly acquired liabilities, namely 2 women to feed, Naomi and Ruth. But for Boaz, this family is not a liability. It's an asset. It's a blessing. The people of the community acknowledge that the marriage of Ruth and Boaz is not exactly a storybook tale or traditional, and yet they bless Ruth to be like Rachel and Leah, to build up the house of Israel. Ruth conceives, gives birth to a son, Naomi's grandson, and the women of the community turn to Naomi and say, "Your daughter-in-law is better to you than 7 sons. She loves you." And as the book of Ruth ends, the text affirms that this baby boy, Oved, is the light and the hope of both sides of his family. A son is born to Naomi, the women of the community exclaim, proclaiming the new life that has come forth even amidst devastation. The last verse of the last chapter of the book reads, Salmon begot Boaz, Boaz begot Oved, Oved begot Yishai, and Yishai begot David, the greatest king in all of Israel. The book of Ruth tells a story of how death and dying can be a force for renewal and growth. Indeed, this is how life unfolds. We cycle from loss, grief, and endings to renewal, growth, and beginnings. All of us, when we are blessed with the gift of life, will experience times of pain and ending. In these moments, we may not be able to grasp anything other than loss and sadness. But in those moments, we have community and family who remember for us that renewal and growth, that a new story is yet on the horizon. Now I quote, "This social hall renovation project has truly been a community endeavor. Thank you to everyone who contributed time, ideas, energy, and expertise along the way. And to all who have donated so generously, your support is helping shape a beautiful future for one of the most valued and well-used spaces on our campus. We deeply appreciate your patience, encouragement, and partnership as we take this exciting step forward together." Now, in the coming weeks and in the coming months, as our social hall renovation project begins to kick up dust, let's take the opportunity to write a new story about our community. May the change and loss that we might feel be a doorway into renewal and growth. May we together build a new narrative about our future, about our light and our hope, and may we remember that the main principle and the whole point is to not be afraid at all. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.